what we're going to be doing today is taking a look at the idea of hatching and cross-hatching as a way of showing light and volume. And it's really, really, really fun. Let me start here. So just imagine you have drawn a picture of, oh, I don't know, say the skull of a lion. And you want to, this little line drawing, it shows some of the structure, but there's a lot of stuff that's going on here that's kind of ambiguous. Just with the lines, I can only really communicate a little bit of that information. But if I get in there with, say, a graphite pencil and add shadows in, I'm then showing light and dark with those. And in places where the form turns its angle, so for instance, if you look at my face here under my chin, because there's a change in angle right here, the light is coming in this way, this part here is in shadow. And hold on, I need to turn off our, disable the waiting room. That way people can come directly in. All right. So, here, the reason that there's this little shadow here is because, and the reason that it's a sharp shadow is because there is a big change in the angle here and the direction of light. So when you are drawing and you're adding in shadows, you are showing the planes of an object where the form turns. So when artists mean when they say that the form turns, they mean that you've got this plane here and now it turns over onto this plane here. When you change that angle, that causes places where shadows can be made, can be cast. And there can be hard shadows and there can be soft shadows. There are what are called form shadows. So if you look right here on my cheek, you see that there is a sort of shadow that comes on right in here. And you notice that it has a soft side, and then there's a hard side. And then as you look at the light going across my face, kind of gets to here, and we're kind of going into more of a soft shadow. So there's a highlight over here, and it's going into softer shadow. There's a fairly hard shadow here. This is a cast shadow down here. So this is cast by my, or if you look at the shadow of my hand on my forehead, that's a cast shadow. And if there is direct sunlight, the edges of that cast shadow are nice and crisp. If there's diffuse light, like light right here, we've got an overcast day and then light is kind of coming in through multiple windows. And so you sort of have a fuzzy shadow. But cast shadows can often be kind of crisp. But you want to, in your head, sort of think of those as separate sorts of things. There's a cast shadow, and then there's a form shadow. So the shadow is on the form itself, something that as it's turning its direction, you are kind of, one thing is fading into another. And if the surface is rounded, then that form shadow will slowly blend one into another. And if it is a sharp angle, then there will be a sharp sudden change in that. So if you look at this, on this surface right here, it's getting a lot of light. This surface right here, it's in shadow. And the edge between those is a very sharp, crisp line. So the more that you have a sort of an angle that suddenly turns, the more you're going to go from light, boom, into dark. And the more that something is a rounded form, the more that is going to sort of wrap. There's going to be a gentle fade from light into dark. Hatching is a way with line both to suggest the changes in the form of an object and to suggest the the direction of light. So we're going to be using this worksheet to play with that. I'm going to jump over to the document camera right now. And we're going to play with this. All right, so this is a drawing of the skull of a lion. I have here the skull of a bobcat. And the bobcat skull is going to help me be able to so tell some, the bobcat skull is going to sort of help me sort of inform a little bit about how I'm going to play with light and shadow in here. So a few things to notice. There are places on the skull that are in sort of deep shadow. If I look right in here, I see there's a nice deep shadow in here. The objects that are kind of down lower on it. Parts up here are going to be more in the light. And there are other places, because of the shape of this, that I'm seeing little shadows that are cast. And I also want to note the sort of the changes in the planes of this. Here's this rounded form up here on the brain case that then drops deep into this eye socket. But I want people to, when they look at my drawing, I want them to know that this is this big rounded surface. If you look right here on the back of the skull of this bobcat, there is a little ridge that is going up here in the back of the skull. That is part of what's called a sagittal crest. And the stronger your jaw muscles, the bigger your sagittal crest are. A lion has a huge sagittal crest. I'm going to need to grab a different visual aid. Hold on. All right, hey everybody, I'm back. So I don't have a lion skull to show you, but I have the next best thing. Here we are. So this is a saber-toothed tiger. Smilodon californicus. And the muscles, if you, everybody put your hand against your forehead right here and chew. Right, you feel that little boom, 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 boom when you're clenching your jaw. That's your temporalis muscle. And on us, it stops. You can actually figure out exactly where it stops as you chew. You get up to about here on your skull and you can't feel it anymore when you chew. You go down here and you feel it when you chew. So ours stops here. So on the bobcat, that's what gives your bite power. On the bobcat, it goes up to this little sagittal crest line here. And then there's a little kind of indication, a little kind of Y line. So you see that this bobcat has a stronger bite because its temporalis muscle comes up to this little U line, this little line that goes across the skull there. But if you were a saber-toothed tiger or a lion, that meets in a shark fin of bone that sticks out on the top of the skull because the skull wasn't big enough to support the muscle, so that you needed this extra fin. It's like that breastbone in the chicken for all the pectoralis muscles, the flight muscles to attach to. So birds have that little keel that sticks out here in front of them so that their pectoral muscles can attach to something and they can have bigger pectoral muscles. This is doing the same thing, but with the jaw bite muscle. So this is all for attaching the temporalis. So notice that there's this ridge that sticks out, and lions have the same thing going on. But you look over here at the sketch, there's not really an indication of that. So, but that's where kind of some of my hatching lines, that's part of the details that I'm going to be putting in with my all these lines that I'm drawing. So let's start by just thinking about the contours of this skull. And what I'm going to do is take one of the little drawings and I'm going to draw some lines across it so that, and I want you to do the same thing so that as we're looking at that, we will, let's see, hold on a second, I've got to get back to that other cam. Whoop, not that one. That one, okay. So let's just take one of these and I'm going to zoom down on it. And I want to think about what the contour lines of this are going to be. So if I draw myself a little cylinder, and you can do the same thing. I'm going to draw a cylinder and two spheres. I actually probably just need one sphere. Yeah, I'm going to need one sphere. See this sort of line on the cylinder here, the edge of the cylinder. If I were to have other sort of lines going across this cylinder, these lines here are going to wrap around the cylinder following that same curve. And so by drawing those lines on it, I'm helping people understand the sort of how things sort of move around this form. If I have a ball and I wrap lines around it, those lines are also going to curve around that object. So actually, I will need a second circle. I'm going to draw one more here and put a little pole right there. Instead of having my North Pole right here, we're looking down on the North Pole. I'm going to draw one line kind of cutting straight through the pole there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a curved line from over here and wrapping around to here. I'm going to draw a curved line from over here and wrapping around over here. It's got a big side and a small side. You see how these lines help you envision the shape of that object. We're going to take advantage of the way that these lines communicate the shape as we look at something like this. Well, one last thing. If I have an object here, this time I'm going to draw myself a little cube, little diamond with three lines coming down from it. And then I put a floor on it. So I just started with a diamond there, three lines of equal length coming down, and then put a floor on it. If there is a line that is cutting across this, where it hits this angle here, it is going to change its angle. So you see what I'm doing is these lines here, they're staying parallel with this edge. And these lines here down in this surface are staying parallel with this edge. So as my objects change, as my lines get to an edge or wrap around a rounded form, they're going to change their angles. You can see this with the dodecahedron. That's the reason that we made this. So each one of these on the printed face has vertical lines. Again, this is a free download on my website. When you hold it at an angle, you can see that over here, oops, right here, So see how these lines come down in this direction? And then when you hit this other surface, the lines change their direction. All these lines, if I hold it this way, they are all pointing down towards the floor. So these are all vertical lines. But as you're looking at, or the lines that are sort of taking they're going straight towards the floor when I hold it this way. When you look at it this way, you see that each one of those is facing off in a different angle. When I look at it this way, this angle over here really abruptly changes when I come into this surface here. So the direction that these lines go can suggest the surface of a plane. And that's why I like this little dodecahedron model, because you can print this out and close one eye and hold it in your hand and just spend some time watching the way those angles change. And then you can make a little sketch of it and draw in the lines in those directions. That's a really powerful way to get your brain to start to look at what are called cross-contour lines. Cross-contour lines go across the contour or form of the object. I'm now going to draw some cross-contour lines here on this drawing. And I'm going to start here on the zygomatic arch. So if you look here on the zygomatic arch of this, there's a surface that comes down here, and then it changes its direction. Zoop, zoop, right? So if I were to make a line coming down this here, it would, whoops, we're not on the screen. Let's see, where are we? There we are. All right, so if I make a line coming down here, it changes its direction when it cuts across that little cross contour line. And here is this little flange that sticks up on the side. That's more of a vertical thing. So if I want to, I can think of this little bit up here as its own little piece that comes straight down. And then this turns out here and then cuts back like that. And I'm going to have another one here. And I'm going to have another one right here. So I'm seeing this sort of change in the angles, maybe a little bit more of an angle right there, as that comes around. But there's a few other things that are interesting that are going on this skull. So there is as we kind of come off the nose, there's a little depression in here. There's sort of a large bump where this incisor tooth kind of comes, oops, yep, they're on the screen. There's a little bump in here. So if I want to kind of get that, I can think of, we're going to come down off of this nose. And so I'm going to round this here. And in here, in this zone here, I want a big bump to stick up. I want a bump to stick up in there. And so if I am coming down here, I'm going to come sort of across part of, actually, yeah, about in here, we're going to change direction. So there's sort of more of a flat surface up in here, and then on the side that changes. And I'm going to just sort of draw a line kind of roughly in here to be where that's going to change directions. So somewhere in here, we're going to change our direction and kind of cut down like that. And what about across here? There's a big sort of large bump that is going to come down here. And I'm going to go up over that and down. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to round over that. So you see what I'm doing is kind of coming down, and then just there's that bump that I'm hitting. If I draw a cross contour line across here, I'm going to be going over a bump here and then coming into the flat part of the face. So essentially I'm making kind of a grid over the face of this object. Let's take a look at the brain case back here. So there's a big round brain case back here with a sagittal crest that sticks up on it. So if I back up here, I have a big round brain case with a sagittal crest that sticks up. It's going to swing out to a little edge here. So I'm going to have the mass of a brain case down here and slightly come up into that area. Well, how do I handle that? I'm going to just right now just sort of draw in a little ball, kind of reminding myself that I want this area to be kind of a sort of raised mound. And what I'm going to do is I am off the sagittal crest. I am going to come down. I'm going to hit this, and it's going to wrap around the ball. So I'm going to come down here. It's going to wrap around the ball. This is going to come down here. It's going to not have quite as much, but in here, I want things to start to kind of curve up towards me again. So I'm going to come down here, wrap around the ball. That means I'm wrapping around a ball here and then coming up to the little edge of the wall here. So if I drew a cross contour line here, I'd be coming here and then swooping up towards, so there's a little depression where then it comes out in another little ridge. Down behind here, I have the auditory bulla. So the auditory bulla is that we're talking about this. Whoops, that's not very helpful. Back up. In the lion here, it's going to be this big structure behind where the cheekbone comes in. This is where we're going to hear. So there's a bone that sticks out here, and on the lion, it's a little bit, it's sort of rounded on the bottom and then angular on the other side. Here's the auditory bulla on this cat skull. And I think we need to give it a little hole in it. But there's going to be one lower surface down here. And then there is going to be an upper surface that is going to be wrapping around there in the ball. The thing in the back here is a ball. So I'm just going to draw some lines around that just to remind me that that's round. Inside the eye here, if the deepest back part is somewhere about in here, and then it wraps towards me here, and it wraps away from that here. So imagine that as something kind of going back in space. On the lower jaw, it's not a flat thing. So see how this looks really flat? I want you to see, people to see that there is thickness to this upper part. I want people to be able to look at this and say, like, okay, there's a thick part in here. And then it turns and goes down. So what I'm going to do on here is just draw in a little line for myself to say, like, there is an angle change about in here. And so that means if you are coming out here along this flat surface, you are then going to change your angle when you come down here. And lastly, there's a big bulge in the front in here. So there's a large bulging part here. So this line is actually going to wrap around that form. So my lines can say something about this shape. I'm going to do the same on the inside here. Here's the edge of that flat part. So lines here are going to come down, and then they're going to be in here. There is an edge that sticks out towards me on this part of the jaw. There's also an edge that sticks out down here for a big insertion point for a muscle that wraps into here. That's part of where the masseter muscle, I think, comes down into here. And the lines that are going to come down there, I'm going to come in and then kind of curve them down so that it'll kind of help me sort of remember that this is a shape that is coming down and then rounding. Up. Thinking about how a line changes, if I were just, to get in here and start painting stripes over a skull, is going to help me then be able to use cross-hatching to define the form. Because what I want to do is have not just, if I've got a cylinder and I draw straight lines across it, I have just flattened the form. So that's why I'm going to be sort of thinking about rounding this, sort of showing the form of this as I make my lines. You can do these lines either with pencil. Here I'm using a fairly dark pencil. Or you can also use a pen to do this. I'm going to do this demo here with pen. And I'm going to do it one way with this one way with this one down here. And then we're going to do it a third way with this. So you'll see that there's a number of ways you can handle these kind of cross-hatching lines, but the same principles will apply across them. Well, what I'm going to do is I am going to I'm going to fill out this little one here with some lines just to sort of suggest how, we'll look at how just a few little kind of contour lines can suggest a lot of form. And I'm going to be really minimalist in this. So I'm going to start right over here in the nose. Here's this sort of strange shape. I want people to see that you're kind of, there's the inside of the nose over there. And that other side is going to be kind of curving around. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a few lines here. And I'm going to kind of curve these around. So there's a set of kind of slow curved lines that fill up that space. And you notice that they're getting closer together towards this end. So towards this end, they're further apart. And as you get into here, they are getting closer together. So it gives you a sort of a sense that you're kind of going into a place where it is kind of into the dark there. And because they're curved, people will then also get a sense that that far side of the nostril is rounded away from you. I am going to put up in here in this area So if you notice in here in front of this bulge of the tooth here, the big incisor tooth, there's a little bit of a depression right in here. I am going to add that in right in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to create a shadow that is roughly going to be in this zone here. And the marks that I'm making are thicker on one side, and then they are fading to fainter towards the end of my stroke. So, and what that does is it makes the shadow bolder up here. So if I can, with these lines, I can think of it as I have the darkest part of my shadow, and then I'm going to feather out from that. And then I'm going to have the next one, the darkest part of my shadow, and I feather out from that. And then I have the darkest part of my shadow, and I feather out from that. I'm also going to suggest that down here in this zone here, there's going to be another big shadow on the underside of this tooth, because I want you to sort of feel that this is this big kind of tooth area. And remember, it's curving, right? It's curving. So I'm going to be following the direction of, with my strokes, of kind of the curve of this. And for that, the heaviest shadow will be towards this side and curving up there. So I'm going to go darker to lighter, taking my time, not just going click, 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 click. There's a hole here, a little depression in the skull. You can see that right here. And that casts a nice little shadow, so I want to push that back. So what I'm going to do is, this surface here is kind of a flat surface in here. I'm going to kind of, from here, I'm going to flick out like that. In here where the roots of these teeth come up, there's also kind of a little ridge right in here. I'm going to put a little just indentation, kind of an indication that there's, you know, some surface kind of coming in here and ending right there in that spot. And then I'm going to continue this as a series of hatch marks. It's going across, all across the underside of that zygomatic arch. Put that into shape. I want this bottom edge of these teeth to feel like there's also a little bit of a lip right in here. So I'm going to just give a very faint line right in here, saying that there's a little angle change right along that line there. What about this little spur that comes up? I want that to be a change in direction there. So I'm going to put a shadow there right where there is that sort of change in the slope of that structure. Here I have this big eye socket, and that brain case and that sagittal crest. This is going to be an important part. So let me start with the eye socket here. So the furthest back part of it is about in here. And then it's swinging towards me here and then swinging towards me on the other side. So what I'm going to do is make a series of marks. I'm actually going to go all the way from the edge here, kind of curving down into there. Now I'm going to turn my paper around the other way because it's easier for me to make curved marks in this direction. And I am now kind of continuing this little shadow zone. And I want that to wrap around then the bottom of the brain case. So I'm putting a few little lines kind of coming up here. The bottom of the brain case is going to be in this area here. I'm going to put a little shadow in this area. So starting with the kind of a little bit of a wiggle and then a more gentle line that comes up. And I'm going to continue that line, but with some shorter strokes all along this edge, but not touching this edge. And the reason I'm not touching this black line at the back here is because I want this to suggest that this is a little part that is actually pointing towards me. If you kind of take again a look at this part of the skull here, so I want this to be in shadow along the base of this brain case here, kind of suggesting there's a depression in here, but on the side that is towards me, there is a little there's a little shadow that comes up. And then I have my sagittal crest. Sagittal crests on animals with strong bites are really, really big and impressive. And so they're on a grizzly bear, on a lion, on a hyenas have wonderful sagittal crests. But I am now going to make these lines. I'm going to try to get them to end kind of sharply along a line in here, right? I want these to kind of come up. I'm suggesting that these are, here's this whole little sagittal crest that comes up in here, and that it is going in a slightly different direction than the rest of the brain case. So I'm going to put in a few little lines, sort of rounding around the back there. And here I can start to also kind of get into the idea of what's called, this is hatching. So I've got one set of lines. Cross-hatching is when I have two sets of lines that cross across each other. So the most sort of easiest to think about is if I have a set of straight lines here, and I have lines that go across them. That is cross-hatching. Notice, however, that this made kind of a screen door grid. The screen door grid can be very visually distracting on our drawings. And we want to I tend to suggest that people, scientific illustrators tend to avoid making their cross-hatching marks at 90 degrees to the first set of lines that they did. Instead, if I have a first set that is like this, if I make the second set go across at a steeper angle, it makes more of these diamonds that are feels less mechanical. It will feel more organic. But both of those sets of lines, you want them to think of kind of following contours of it. Another thing that you can think of is, let's say I have a set of contours that are going big to small, big to small, big to small, big to small in this direction. If I have another set that is going across those, I don't have to keep this same spacing or weight. So this next set could be, if I wanted to, it could be a light set that is slowly spacing out. So you don't think of them as I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. Okay, that's my cross hatching. But think of you've got, you know, whatever decisions you've made with your first batch, you get to also sculpt with this second batch. Let me put a little bit of cross hatching into the upper part of this skull. I'm going to put a little bit here in this eye socket to make it a little bit darker. Got a little bit square down in there. So notice how you can see that grid. That would be better if I was not straight at 90 degrees, but I wasn't really thinking. Sometimes stopping and thinking before you make the mark makes a huge difference. I'm going to try just a couple in here. I'm going to try a couple in here. I'm going to try one. Whoops, where am I at? I'm off my screen. There. I'm going to try one up in here. Maybe a couple. I'm going to put a little bit of, here's my auditory bulla. I'm going to put in that little hole. And I'm going to make these little hatches come right up to near the base of that to suggest that there's a little lip on it. I'm going to suggest that this isn't a flat surface across here, but instead this comes down. And because those hatch marks there stop before as they reach this, that suggests that this then is at a different plane. On the inside here, there are some, we're seeing underneath here, this is sort of going to be deep in shadow. I'm going to just make a set of very close hatching lines to push this part back and do the same with this. But this one, I think I'm going to suggest, my line is going to be doing this. Do you see this little drawing right here? See how I've got these lines kind of curving this way and then curving this way? As I come around here, curving this way to the left, now straight, and then curving around here. Just suggests some change in the form. Let's drop down onto this lower part of the lower jaw here. Remember, I want to suggest that little shelf. And I also want to suggest that this is, this part here is further back. It's a little bit in shadow. And so I am going to make a set of hatching lines that are coming down fairly close together because I want this to feel good and dark. But I'm going to avoid this little kind of ridge area in here. And I'm going to start to space my lines further out as I come here. And then there's that back side of the jaw. But because there's that little skip here, it feels like, oh, we've gone over the shelf and that part is catching light. Now, what about this lower jaw here, the side of the mandible that is close to us? All right, well, this tooth comes all the way in here. That's going to make kind of it's going to make a little bulge right there. So I created that bulge with a shadow that then wraps around that. I have this edge here of my jaw. Now, if I could get in here and draw lines like this that I did here and stop it there, but then this would feel, I want this to be in the light. I want that to be in shadow. I want this to be in light. So how do I handle that? Well, this inflection point right here is really, really important. And so I can put some little lines in here and other little set right in here. So here's just a little bit suggesting that at that point, there's a change in the angle. And here, I'm not going to do that all the way to here because it just gets rounded in here. Now, what about this whole part? Actually, let me first do this sort of whole bottom section here. This bottom part here, there's a very kind of tight shadow that is locked along the bottom part of this. So I'm going to kind of come in here and just suggest that little tight shadow, a few little kind of flicks up from the edge. This little structure that comes up here. I'm going to leave that part light. There's a deep indentation here. But I'm also going to want to put a cast shadow of this zygomatic arch down in here. I want part of this to be in shade. Because I'm sitting in a room with diffuse lighting coming through windows from an overcast day, I can't just hold this up to the light and see exactly where that shadow would would hit. But if I want to put that in, I'm just going to have to make it up. So I think it's going to start, on this surface that is facing in this direction, it's going to come across here. And then there's going to be a change in that angle here. So I want that, my little shadow is going to be up in that zone there. All right. So what will I do? I want there to sort of suggest that and then this part here has this overhanging lip. There's this little overhanging lip in here. And so that means that this part in here, see, it helps sometimes to figure out where my shadow is going to go, and then I can come and put it in. There's a little bit of a curve to this. So by putting a curve in on this surface here, helps suggest that. If I crosshatch it, that will get darker. I think that I want to kind of connect these up. I'm going to put a set of kind of light lines coming in here. Just so, yeah, I like that better. Sometimes you can also do this with a line. If you have a light line, you can also give it a little kind of little ghost marks at the end. So that if my line stops here, do that. Just gives a little bit more, a little hint of texture. I did that a little bit in there. So what I have done then is used lines to sculpt the shadows on this skull. But here I'm trying to leave this thing mostly light. I'm trying to leave it mostly light. I could make a different set of decisions. And so what I'm going to do next is I am going to um, do a second little demo on this little skull here. And on this one, I'm going to go much darker. And I'm really going to push my values with it. And you can see that there's a lot of places that I just sort of chose to leave white in here that I don't have to necessarily do that. I also want to just demonstrate that you can do this with different kinds of media. So this time I'm going to go straight in with pen. And so here we go. I'm going to keep the same general light direction here. And let's see where, so I want this surface here is going to be catching some light up in here. This will be catching more light in here, a little bit in here.
Jack, can you push your paper up a little, please?
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. So I'm just sort of figuring out sort of what are some zones where I want light to catch on this, and just lightly kind of balling in with pencil where those are going to go. All right. I am going to there's the inside of my nose. You notice that sometimes I can make my lines kind of come down and dot out at the end. All right. Actually, I think what I want to do is I want to push myself to really go dark on this. So I'm going to get a thick pen, and I want this area here to be really, really dark. So my dark shadow is going to be, is going to include this area here. So all that's going to be dark. So I'm just going to come in here and make that really dark. This is going to force me to push my value range. And just so it's consistent, let's put some real dark up into here. At first, these shadows are going to feel super harsh, super harsh. Here is in this part. And you notice that there's a harsh edge to that doesn't feel right, but that's going to be softened by hatching. So I can actually play with, the idea of kind of the boldness of the shadows, and sort of know that I'm going to come back later and add and sort of soften some of those edges. What about I want a little bit of darkness right down there. I want oh, actually all these structures down here underneath. I'm gonna go dark. Leave a little bit of a light edge there. This is just sort of figuring out what my the deepest darks, and in here. I think a little triangle here. All right. So I mean that looks pretty. I mean those darks look super harsh, don't they? But let's now use hatching to create some fades. So if I've got a really dark area, I can then create hatching out from that is going to fade that light out. I am going to, let's see here. In here, I like the way that worked out. What about in here? Oh, I'm going to put a dark, real dark accent in here. Now I'm going to try to sort of blend some of these together. Oh, let's see. How do I want to do this? This surface here is down. This is my first. Think of the hatching as kind of coming in layers. That's the first layer. And my second layer, a little bit of lighter strokes. Cross hatching across that. I want this whole sort of side of this whole area, I want to suggest that this is so you see how I'm kind of still thinking of this as a I'm thinking of this as kind of showing the contour, showing the form with the with the shape of those lines. Here's the top of this zygomatic arch, or the bottom of it. And that's in dark shadow. And if the light is coming from this side here is going to be in darker shadow. So I'm going to put a bit of darkness into there. I'm going to turn my paper so that I can, it's easier for me to flick my hand in this direction. So some hatching and then cross hatching. What about in here? There will be a little place in here. I want this little ridge.
Can you skip your paper?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Getting this little ridge right in here. And that there's part of it that I just want to kind of push back, I can make a set of very light kind of ghosty lines that kind of can tie something together, like this part here, because this is all dark and then this part's really light, is feeling left out. That kind of tied that together. It was feeling just a little bit too light there. I think I want just to also kind of push this zone back a little bit. Coming up into this scoop in the face here. There is the little depression here, and then I'm going to add some other little kind of cross hatches in there. I want to have like the back side of this be some dark, and maybe kind of connect that up into here. So you see this one is getting much darker, not just because I'm using pen, but I'm really kind of putting the hatches into places that previously had just been white. So where you want to kind of push those zones of light and dark is up to you. Let's look at this area back here, this really stark zone in here. So I've got those let's see, where are we? There we are. So I'm turning my paper so that it is easier for me to kind of draw at an angle that is easy for my hand. So that's why I'm taking my paper, and so I'm kind of going from light, fading out into the darkness in here, because I'm putting in some longer strokes. It gives you sort of a little bit more of a slow fade. And what about from in here? I totally forgot my zygomatic, not my zygomatic arch, my sagittal crest. That's, I really like sagittal crests. I want that to be nice and bold. Let's see. This. Yeah. So what's fun is that with this approach, you can just kind of get in there and you can play with areas. And the reason that we have this worksheet with multiple images on it is so that you can absolutely overwork it and kind of get it to a point where you've got to go like, oh no, that's not right. That's not what I want. What I recommend that people do is print out several of these and just start playing with different ways of using these sort of sculptural lines across your critters. This is just done with a ballpoint pen and just messing around with it. You can also play with, ones that are kind of give you a heavier line. Oopsie, there we go. And you'll find, you'll do things that you don't like, and then you'll do other ones that you do like. But those lines and carving on that surface, think of you're showing not just light and dark, but you're physically carving the surface of that skull. And that, I think, is what makes hatching just so much fun. You can also play with different textures. For instance, on the teeth here, what I might do is just kind of come in and on the teeth, just have very kind of neat one direction of line, just so it feels like it's a different material. Maybe this tooth in the back. Gets hatched away. I like the way that takes. What if I do it over here? We'll find out. Yeah. But you're going to overdo it, and that's fine, because you've got all these little study sheets, so you can just play with it and mess around with it and see what works. And then when you feel ready, you go bop into the big one and see what that's like. Somebody was asking about the pen that I'm using. This is a zebra pen, and it's a pen that when I press lightly, I can get a light line. When I press hard, I can get a hard line. So it allows me to kind of get a very variable line depending. Oops, I thought I was demonstrating. Let me back up. Whoop, whoop. Yep. So what the zebra pen does is it allows me to kind of press hard and get a higher line, right? Lightly and get a soft line. And so that's a fun too. Those are available on my website if people are interested in those. But you don't need any special pen for this. At the start, we just did this one up here just with our pencil. And it's a ton of fun to play with this. You're sculpting the skull, and you're figuring out, like, if there's part of it, then you look like, that part's not working for me. Like, what happens if I'm going to bring, I'm going to tie that together. Like, oh, I liked it better before. Well, I'm going to show you one last thing. I think that this might be like too much, but it can't. But sometimes what you'll be thinking is like, let's say there is a part of the skull that got too dark, right? And you're thinking like, oh, dear. And you're thinking like that I wish I didn't do that. Well, another thing you can do is think of this kind of like scratch board. Scratch board is a clay-coated paper that you can draw on ink and then scratch out little white lines. But you've just done this on paper. So what can you do? Let it dry, and then bust out your white gel pen. Oh, now things just got real, right? What I can do here with this is I can think of, I'm not just going to try to like lighten an area. I want to think of scratching. Think of this as like now a drawing tool that I'm going to draw into this dark part. And I'm going to put in Isn't that cool? So I just did white lines on top of the dark lines. Ooh. So there's a place that feels too dark, and you might want to add some light in. Think of, I'm going to get a different direction to these lines, but you're still showing the shape of this thing. With those lines. You can sometimes, like, if I wanted a little bit of reflected light back here, I'm just going to take it. Ooh, I just got a little bit of reflected light in it. What if I'm just going to take this front edge of this. That was fun. I wonder about the bottom edge of this zygomatic arch. Ooh, that was cool. What if I just use that then maybe to lighten part of this shadow? Interesting. So you get to, so you can use your white gel pen on an ink drawing that is hatching to essentially give yourself a scratch board technique.
Hey, Jack, Dana had a really good suggestion. If we could have maybe an actual photo posted of the skull, then we could look at the skull and practice our hatching after this class.
Oh, that's a really good idea. I don't know if I have a photo of this skull. But if I do, we will post that. We'll post that with the post that with the when we put the recording of this up online. That's a really good idea, Amy.
Oh, that's Dana's idea.
Yeah. But just have fun with this, right? What I want you to do is just be a carver, right? Be a carver, and take these lines and show the form. And so we're not just kind of going lines this way, then lines this way. Oh, okay, I did them at a 45-degree angle, and so I don't have the grid. That's fine. No, there's like so much more that you can do. You can like, I'm going to show the form, and you can kind of go light into dark. You can like fade out your lines. You can get into the cross-hatching effect by adding your gel pen in if you're using ink. I mean, this approach is a great thing for just kind of zenning out and geeking out. And you're going to find that there'll be parts that you like and parts that you don't like. And that's why you have a bunch of them. So don't think of this as initially as drawings. Like, print out some of these things and just use them as studies to and do a bunch of them. Get play with those. And I think you're going to have a lot of fun with crosshatching.
We have a couple of questions real quick, Jack. Dana
Excellent.
said, if you could just even hold up the skull right now, we could grab a screenshot of it. So the fun can continue.
So I don't have a lion skull. This is my.
Yeah, hold that up.
Hold this little one up.
Yes.
Oh, let me. Yep. So there's this little skull, and then it has the lower jaw. So kind of that's getting washed out. Oops, that side's broken. We're gonna go look at the non-broken side. And there, if I shade it a little bit, you can sort of see that a little bit more of its structure. And then, yeah, we will be putting this up on johnmuirlaws.com. And then there's Smile It On here. That big the brain case down in here, that big sagittal crest that pops up across there.
Awesome. Can you also show your drawing again? Just the whole thing.
I'll use the document camera and just sort of zoom down on that. And here we are. So we first had this little one where we're just sort of thinking about lines changing direction across form, and then its little friend was hatching that one. And then we did that with ink. And I'll show you some other versions of this. You'll see that when you do it different times, you'll get things that look differently. All right. So here's this one. Can you see up in here where I am using the gel pen to get that texture? Isn't that cool? And there's this one, and I'm like, I don't really like the way that this one's going. You know, this one would be kind of fun just to play with. When you have something and you don't like the direction it's going, well, then just sort of use that as like, oh, let's see if I just kind of go crazy on putting in all sorts of hatching lines, right? And just sort of use it as a study. This was just messing around with a ballpoint pen. You can see that you can get that sense of form. What do you like? These little areas in here, like that. Just a few of those little hatching marks there does a lot to sort of sculpt that. A little bit in here. So see what you can do with a minimum of line. See what you can do with a maximum of line. And play. Just see what happens if you do that.
All right, and we have one more question. I'm not quite sure of the answer to it. The new recordings that you post, are they on your YouTube channel or website or both?
Both. So what my approach is so that my website doesn't turn sluggish is I post them on YouTube, and then and then 5 minutes after that, I'm on my website, and I can have my website, put it up as a post on my website. So a little bit easier to find and organize on the website. So if you're looking for a place where they're kind of more curated, you go to the blog archives on my website where it says blog, under that there's blog archives, and then things are in categories. And that's a lot easier to kind of sort through and find the ones that you want. What I do is on my website, my website is actually referencing, send a signal out and kind of brings in the YouTube video so that my website doesn't really slow down. This is kind of a more technical look at cross-hatching. But I hope you got some ideas here that you can really enjoy and play with. Coming up, we're going to have others on Stipple, another technique that a lot of illustrators use to be able to show volume and form. And then we're also going to show you the crazy Stipple shortcut. So Stipple for people who are impatient, like me. Like Stipple, it is a really time-consuming thing. It's like dot, dot, a dot, 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 and you're actually having to place your dots. But what do you do if you're impatient? We will show you, and it's cool. I hope this was a lot of fun. What I'd like we're going to do now is we're going to bounce over to the community gallery here. Hold on just a moment. And what we're going to do is, if you have a comment, a thought, a question, or idea, and you'd like to just join us live here, just put up your hand and wave at the screen if your camera is on, and I will see you waving, or you can use the raise hand function that is in Zoom. If you look along the bottom under React, there's a raise hand thing there. So you can hit that. And then I will see that you've got something to share, or a question, or a comment, or a thought, or an idea. But I hope this was a lot of fun for you folks. Let's see, anybody want to share something, or have a question or comment about hatching? Oh, actually, I probably should send a shout out to my sort of influences in this. I strongly suggest that people check out the website and books of Alfonso Dunn if you like pen and ink stuff. Alfonso does lots of wonderful stuff to help teach people how to master pen and ink. And so that is another, there's sort of a deep well of material there. That's a lot of very useful information there. And let's see, another great place to look for in kind of getting inspirations with pen and ink is to just go online and look at the work of comic book art tutorials. So very often we're thinking that, like, you know, I want to draw a skull, or I want to draw the mushroom or the bird, and I'm not so much into Batman. And so you kind of would flip past all the Batman tutorials. But in these Batman tutorials and things like that are some of just absolutely masterful workshops on how to handle, they do lots of cross-hatching in comic books. Or graphic novels. And so I want to encourage people to check out those sorts of resources. So does anybody have any journal pages to show us? I think so. Walters,
hand up with a question earlier.
So I'm gonna first bounce over to I think that we're down in the Canary Islands right now. With our friend Walters, and then we'll see who else has got something to share. So Walters, you can probably now unmute, and I'm going to add you into the spotlight. Hey there, it's really good to see you.
Hi. So haven't shown anything in a while, but a lot of things have been happening. So unfortunately, I cannot take my journal underwater, but after I go diving, I get home and I try to identify the fish that I see. So this is just some sketches of the fish that I saw.
Wow.
And these fish, these are kind of like these very, very long. This is like an actual size, but of a very, very small fish. So these ones are very, very long. And they're just they have these little flippers here and here. So when they swim, they're just like kind of flipping them, and it looks unnormal with fish so long and so big to have these kind of flippers that go just like this. And they are actually predators, which also seems unreal because they're just flipping away in the water like this. So they actually eat other fish. So these are very interesting here.
That is really, really strange. That's very cool. You've got a real sense of the structure of fish also. This is so much fun. Something that you might, so are you doing snorkeling, or are you diving?
Both diving and snorkeling, yeah.
Something that you might consider doing is there's a drawing substance called drafting film. And they are essentially plasticized sheets of they're essentially a sheet of plastic. Oh,
Yeah.
You're doing underwater sketching now. This is your underwater sketching system. So talk to us about this. Okay, this is next level cool. This is next level. All right, you got to share.
Very, very simple lines, kind of just write. Mostly I do it for listing, so I just write kind of the fish that I see, so I remember, and just do like really quick kind of to see the shape and the pose, because after I do look in a identification guide to kind of see that I get those lines, but to get the poses and to list the fish that I saw, so I don't draw the ones that I didn't see. I just kind of, I can on this, I can just draw. So underwater, so yeah.
Oh, so you can make preliminary sketches on this board, and then you later wipe that off?
Yeah, it sadly underwater, if once it's full kind of sketched, I cannot clear it underwater. I actually need an eraser, and then when I come ashore, I clean it off. So
is that just a graphite?
Cannot,
is that just a graphite pencil?
I think it is. Yeah, it looks like it.
Oh, this is a cool
like
system.
A graphite pencil.
You know, if you had like a binder clip, you could actually have a few sheets of drafting film. The kind that we have over here, there's one called Duraline that I use a lot. Let me show you how it looks.
Yeah, this one's simple. I just strap it to my belt, and I see something or that I want to write. Then I just unstrap it and use it. So it's very easy, handy.
Here are so this is a sheet of Duraline. It would probably fit on your board there. And how long would it take a package in the mail to get to the Canary Islands from the United States? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I have ordered a couple of things from the United States. About 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
How much longer are you going to be there?
Till April.
Okay. All right. So send me an email.
Yeah.
And I will send you off a care package of drafting film, because maybe on the islands it'll be hard to kind of get a hold of this.
Probably, yeah.
I will send you. Does this size look like it would fit on your clipboard?
Oh, definitely. Maybe that's a bit too big. My clipboard's like, like my hand. So maybe that's a bit bigger. But if it's fine, it just kind of flips here a bit. So
what you could do is then take, say, a binder clip, and have on the back side of it the ones you're not using, and then bring one around to the front, because you could then take this, draw underwater, then bring it back. You can then you can, when it's dry, you can just draw on top of that sketch and further those things. It would be kind of fun to see what would happen with that. Also, I think that if you want to bring colors underwater, there are sort of oil pencils and things that kind of might work. Probably watercolor pencils, not so much. But I'm gonna mail you I'm gonna get off to the post office today, and mail you a little Durling care package, and then you just let me know how that goes. I think that would be fun.
I'm gonna get in touch with you, yeah. But I reckon with a scuba gear, with a air balloon, it would be easier because with the snorkel, you know, you're at the top of the water and there are waves, so you're just kind of going around. And once you dive to get closer, you know, you can hold your breath for a minute and stay under there. But with a scuba gear, I reckon it would be easier. So I haven't tried yet with while I was diving air tank. So it would be fun. I think it could be fun.
That could be crazy cool. That could be crazy cool.
There are catfish and octopus and all sorts of shiny, colorful little things here. So I think, yeah, that's a good idea.
Excellent.
That's
Excellent. You guys, so send me the address. This is going to be fun.
I will.
This is going to be
I
cool.
will.
And is there some sort of a clip thing that you would have there, or should I send that?
No, I have here.
You've
There
got
are
that.
some stuff on the island. Yeah, there is some stuff on the island, so it's good. One more quick thing. We went to there are 8 islands here around. I'm on the biggest one, but we went to a nearby island called La Gomera and did a little sketching there. So we were there for just one day. So we went up into the mountains, but didn't really see anything. I wanted to see these laurel pigeons, which are endemic here, but I only heard them. So I went after that. I went to the seashore from the hotel and got these little gulls. And just before departing, did a quick sketch of the place that is there, San Sebastian. So
those are neat. And that gull in flight is also really cool. That nails the proportions of it. That's really cool.
I'm working on it. I'm just the biggest John Busby geek right now. I have almost all of his books. I really like Birds in Mallorca. That's my favorite one so far. And I also
could you hold that book up for? Do you have the book there that you could hold up for us?
I have it somewhere, but I also have for Christmas I got a John Busby painting original. So
no way. Yeah. Can we see it?
It's gonna be
this. So for folks who aren't familiar, John Busby does like light pencil or soft pencil with watercolor wash stuff. It probably has the most alive birds that anybody's ever put on paper. Just a master of gesture.
I don't have it here, and I don't know where is the book. Maybe the painting's here. It's gonna be shipped to Latvia because it would be a pretty big hustle to carry it back home from here. So sorry, but it's of reed warblers and these what were they called? These little kind of tits or chickadees, how you call it them, with these little kind of beards. Maybe they're reedlings, something like that. I don't know, reedlings. Cool. But I'm gonna find it next time. And the Birds of Mallorca book is very, very good. It's awesome. It has beautiful sketches of birds and landscapes. So
fantastic.
Yeah, I remembered where the book is. Okay, but yeah, beautiful.
All right, so next time we'd love to check that out.
Yeah, next time definitely I will bring it on. And there are parrots here also.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I saw.
Is there? Let me reduce my screen so we can see more of the stuff going on in your channel here. Remove. Oops. There we go. Oh,
it's hard with their beaks. Their beaks
Yes.
are
I love that one
so
looking down where you're looking at the top of its head and that the body's at a 3/4 view. Oh, that is so cool. That's really
yeah,
dope.
they're introduced here, but they have a pretty stable population here in some cities where there's some palm trees and because here in my town there's kind of like desert around, so not so much here, but in other cities there are a lot of parrots, so
Again,
it's
you're
fun to
currently
see
on
them.
you're on the Canaries. You're on the Canary
Yeah,
Islands?
on the Canary Islands on Tenerife. That's the biggest of the islands. So somebody asked last time, is there a volcano? That's on the other island. I think it has stopped now, but yeah, it was pretty near. So, but
Did
no
you get
stress.
to
It was
see eruption?
no. Sadly, I didn't because I was here in summertime, and then it hadn't yet started. Then I went home, it started, and then when I got here, it was kind of just some smoke was coming out of it and not lava anymore. So
Mm, mm, mm.
next time.
Next time, next time. Come
Yeah,
on, hotspot.
yeah. Hopefully. No,
That's
well, not
really cool.
hopefully, but
Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
thank
And
you.
we look
Next time
forward
we'll,
checking in with
yeah,
more of your aquatic adventures.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really cool. So yeah, what's going on in your journal? Let's jump over to London town right now with our friend Ray Bonto and see what's happening in your journal. Ray Bonto, it's great to see you. Hello there, Arpan. Good to see you as well. I have to hold on a second. I need to allow you to unmute. Now you can unmute, and now here we go.
I didn't see the announcement for a worksheet, but so I drew it.
Oh, nice, nice sculptural drawings. And then did you play with some of the, did you enjoy playing with some of the hatching techniques?
Yes.
I really love, I mean, these are so sculptural. Oh, wait, go to that top one up there. Oh, yes. Yes. Pushing those values and just, you can see the form here. You can feel this thing, the weight of this in your hand. That's really exciting. Oh yeah. Oh, that's cool. So you were having to draw the skull and get all of the cross-hatching lines on top of that.
Yes, I was falling quite behind.
Wow.
So, I mean, first, while you were announcing everything, I had to quickly search up the whatever you call it, worksheet.
Yeah.
And I drew one from there, and then going on to another drawing of the next skull, which we're going to draw, then doing a bit of hatching on the one I'm doing, and then going a bit onto the next, and then when you and then going into the one I am in now, and while you started the next, then I concentrate on the next, and then the one after that, and then I just start drawing that.
Oh, that is great. That's great.
But I managed to in the end.
Oh, yes. Oh, so thoughtful. Oh, so thoughtful. That is really, really exciting to see. Just such intentional lines.
I went back to my SAP soft
My
spot.
job is to make college.
But I didn't have time to get onto that, like coloring it and stuff. But this bit had dried up.
Yeah. Oh, so
That-
did it change its shape slightly?
No, but it went a little reddish brown in the color,
Mm-hmm.
all of it, whereas it was black on Tuesday.
Nice.
But the source was still a bit sticky, and this bit had gone all dry. There were a bit of sticky bits on the edge, but that was all.
Do you think?
because of the
Do you think
spider.
that it kind of oozed out over the spider web, or that the spider web was made after the stuff had oozed out?
No, probably it was. I don't think it affected the spider web because much. Well, maybe a bit here and there on the top, and the spider web kept that. Somehow, I think the spider web's sticky bits went onto the bottom of that, making the bottom bits that. The bottom bit was a bit shiny, and that was spider web is probably the reason.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also some specks around the top, as if someone had sprinkled chili powder on it.
Huh. What are some possible things that substance could have been?
I don't know. Not a clue. Definitely, people don't bother walking with
With chili powder in their pocket?
sprinkling paprika all over the tree.
Yeah.
And if it were a powder spill, it would have gone on the ground.
Mhm. But sort of paprika colored and
Yes.
really fine, or was it larger grains?
It was like flakes. Flaky sort
Interesting.
of
Oh, gosh, I wonder what that was.
powder, between powder and flakes.
Nice.
I don't know.
Oh, that's fun. Thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anything else happening in your journal that you wanted to show us?
No, not really.
Not at this time. Well, thank you so much, Ray Bonto. It's really great to see both of you. You are doing well?
Yeah, how are you?
We are well here. We've got in this part of the world, we have our Omicron just blowing up around us. So we are now just all trying to kind of hunker down and wait till this blows over. It seems that the Omicron will kind of the scientists refer to it as an ice pick spike, so that it's not in your area, and then there's a huge spike of it that happens really fast and ends really fast. And so when Omicron is in your area, this is a great time to stay indoors and draw your houseplants. If it's to avoid large crowds, avoid those sorts of things. There is no the monoclonal antibodies that we've developed to help treat COVID. The three that are the most sort of widespread out here, they don't work on Omicron. And so at some point, I think I'm probably going to get it. The trick is just not to get it right now. And so we're just doing everything that we can do to stay safe. I'm really excited to say that my wife just finished a whole block of on-service time at the hospital, and now she's got 4 weeks that she doesn't have to go in unless all the other people on the infectious disease service get sick. So she's just finished a big block. She didn't get COVID during that, and we're hoping that she doesn't have to go in, which means keeping our healthcare workers healthy, and we can help with that. So if you don't catch it, the chances of a healthcare worker catching it go way down. So that's good. It's a weird changing landscape, isn't it? Yeah. But you've been well?
Yeah, we've all been fine. But but the train announcements are going back to last year, and yeah, they're going back to last year strangely,
Mm,
but
yeah. The well, how sort of strange it must be to have like so much of your life be under the shadow of this COVID thing. And it is, that's something that, our previous generation, they dealt with, they dealt with, pandemics and things that would sweep across the globe. But my generation, your dad's generation, we thought like, yeah, everybody's got their shots. We're fine. We're fine. What could possibly go wrong? So we had to invent some new viruses. Pesky evolution. But I'm glad you folks are staying safe, and I'm glad that you have this massive creative outlet of being able to create art and observe nature. And you've trained yourself now how to find like all the mysteries in the tree sap, and kind of to take advantage of that. That's a real skill. That's a skill that a lot of people don't have, how to find out, how to be able to look at that tree. Most people just kind of look at it, just kind of go like, oh, it's a tree, it's got sap on it. But you take it to the next level. So really, it's exciting the way you observe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Take care.
We certainly will. Be well, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now bouncing over to the gallery again. Is there anybody else that has a journal page that you wanted to share? Comments, thoughts, and ideas about hatching, cross-hatching, working in ink, nature journal pages, or any related things? If not, we're going to be turning off the recording in just a moment. And if people wanted to share something not on the recording, you'll have an opportunity to do that. Before we go, I just want to encourage everybody to stay safe. If you're in the middle of an ice pick in your area, it is a great time to avoid social contact. And I know that everybody is really, really tired of kind of the COVID precautions. But remember this kind of ice pick behavior of this variant. And that helps you when you are spiking in your area, just to realize that this will pass, and then the levels of it are going to be much better on the other side of it. But expect a big spike and then a crash in that. And it seems that this variant is so contagious. It's rippling across the world. So every community is going to get its spike. And over the next 3 months, that's probably going to be happening globally. So just looks like here in the United States, New York is starting to come down off its spike. And we'll see. There's fascinating research, by the way. My wife was telling me about this morning, where they're actually, they are measuring COVID levels in communities by looking at the level of COVID in wastewater. And that follows what is happening with the hospitalizations. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, there's COVID in wastewater? So that's interesting. Yeah, but let's stay safe. Stay safe. Let's take care of each other. If there are elders or immunocompromised people in your neighborhood, see what you can do to do at least one grocery run a week. Is there somebody that you can help who is less vulnerable than you? And if you are in a vulnerable population. Let's just really just take care of yourself. Let's outlast this thing, and we can do that together. Thank you, everybody. And I also want to thank Amy Sides so much for being here and helping support this workshop. I'm going to bring Amy on. Is that okay, Amy? If I spotlight you here. So Amy, thank you so much for helping us with this this workshop. I really appreciate your time and your energy, and you know, when I'm drawing off the screen, kind of getting me back on again.
You're very welcome. I've enjoyed being the co-host. It's a lot of fun.
That's great. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.